Have you ever listened to a really big political speech and just had this feeling that there's something else going on, something just below the surface? Well, today, we're going forensic. We are going to deconstruct how these messages are engineered to reveal the incredible machinery working just out of sight. So, we see a leader at a podium, right? And we think, okay, they're just speaking their mind. But what if that's not the whole story? What if I told you that every single word, every pause, every historical nod is a carefully chosen gear in a massive strategic machine? Let's start peeling back those layers.
All right, to kick off our investigation, we've got to look past all the performance and the fancy words and ask a really basic but really important question.
Now, the obvious answer is the person speaking, of course. But in the world of discourse analysis, that simple idea is actually, well, kind of misleading. The reality is way more complicated. This is what analysts call the fallacy of the subject. And the idea here is that the speaker we see isn't really just one person. They're a construct, a carefully engineered collective voice. It's not one person's thoughts. It's the product of a whole team. And check this out. This is how that collective voice breaks down. You've got strategists who are basically the architects, designing the structure. You have policy wonks who bring the actual ideas. You have ghostwriters who find just the right words. And then finally, you have the president, who acts as the animator, the one who performs it and brings that final text to life. It's a total team sport.
And that leads us to the absolute golden rule for this kind of analysis. We have to separate the person from the text. Our job isn't to be mind readers, right? We're not trying to guess what the speaker intended or felt. Our job is to look at what the language itself does, how it works, and the reality it builds. So we don't say the speaker felt something. We say the text constructs something.
So, okay, if a speech is an engineered text, what exactly is it designed to build? Well, its number one job is to create a really powerful and unifying story about the nation. Let's take a look at the blueprint. At the heart of this whole narrative is a classic setup, us versus them. It's super powerful. As you can see here, the self, or us, gets defined by these big abstract values like liberty and freedom. The character is tough but resilient. But look at the other side. The other isn't defined by values, but by actions, tyranny, hatred, murder. This black and white contrast creates this incredible sense of moral clarity and a shared purpose. Okay, so we've got the blueprint, this us versus them story. Now for the fun part. Let's pop open the hood, open up the toolkit, and look at the specific instruments they use to actually build this thing. Every persuasive speech, pretty much, draws from these three big categories of tools. You've got linguistic resources, that's the word-level stuff. Then you've got rhetorical resources. Those are the stylistic tricks that make things sound persuasive and stick in your head. And finally, discourse mechanisms, which is all about the speech's logic and how it hooks into history. Let's start by zooming all the way in to the most granular part of the toolkit, the linguistic stuff, the words themselves. And you'd be amazed how much power can be packed into something as simple as a pronoun. The word we. It seems so simple, but politically, it is a battlefield. This speech is constantly strategically shifting what we means. Sometimes it's an inclusive we, like in our country. This move merges the government and the people, making it feel like everyone is on the same page. It makes it really hard to disagree, right? But then it'll subtly shift to an exclusive we, which really just means the administration. And that move disguises a specific policy as the will of the entire nation. So clever. All right, let's move on to the next tool in the box. This is where language starts painting pictures in your mind to make really complex political moves feel simple, natural, and just inevitable. And here is where you can really see the power of metaphor. The fire of freedom. It sounds kind of dangerous, but also cleansing, right? Calling a political collapse a shipwreck makes it feel like a natural disaster, not something caused by policy. And get this, framing the spread of an idea as a seed upon the wind makes a military strategy feel like biology, like it's just going to happen anyway. These metaphors aren't just pretty words, they're actively shaping how we see the world.
But rhetoric isn't only about pictures and images. Oh no. The very sound, the rhythm of a speech is engineered to create a feeling of truth, of stability.
So the speech uses these really powerful rhythmic structures. There's the triplet, for example. Using three parallel words or phrases, it just feels complete. Then there's antithesis, setting two opposites against each other. That creates a simple black and white world. And parallelism, with its balanced mirrored structure, just feels so stable and reasonable. This isn't just about good writing, this is about creating an aesthetic of truth. It sounds true, so we're more likely to believe it is.
Okay, on to our third and final tool set, discourse mechanisms. This is the big picture stuff. It's all about how a speech connects itself to other moments, other texts, and even to history itself, to borrow a little bit of their authority. This technique has a fancy name, intertextuality, but the idea is simple. By quoting someone like Abraham Lincoln directly, the speech forges this chain of history. It takes a controversial policy from 2005 and links it straight back to the moral clarity we associate with the Civil War. The effect is incredibly powerful. It legitimizes current actions by suggesting they're just the next logical step in a long, noble story.
Okay, so we've looked at all the tools they use on the surface. But now, let's go one level deeper. What's the hidden power source that makes all of this actually work?
Think of the speech like an iceberg. What we hear, the visible text, all those big abstract words like freedom and dignity, that's just the tiny tip sticking out of the water. But below the surface, that's where the real mass is. That's the huge hidden foundation of unspoken values and ideology. Things like American exceptionalism and a kind of modern manifest destiny.
And here is the absolute masterstroke. The way the speech creates political legitimacy is by fusing two completely different worlds together. It merges private, personal character values, things like faith and conscience, with the public interest of policy and national security. And the effect of that? Well, it subtly reframes things so that if you oppose a policy, it can be made to sound like you're opposing someone's personal moral character. It's a brilliant move.
We have completely taken this machine apart. Now, let's put it back together into a simple formula that you can use to analyze pretty much any speech you hear.
Here you go, your cheat sheet. The formula is this. First, identify the resource being used. Second, find an example of it in the text. And third, explain the discursive effect. That is, what is the language actually doing to persuade you? So resource, metaphor. Example, the fire of freedom. Effect, it makes political action seem natural. And please remember the pro tip. Focus on what the text constructs, not what you guess the author wants. This is your key to unlocking any political text.
So we've pulled apart this one specific speech, but these tools, these strategies, they are everywhere. This isn't just a history lesson about 2005, this is the living language of power today. Which leaves us with one final big question. The next time you listen to a leader speak, what are you going to hear? Just the words or the machinery humming just beneath them?